like this old hot rod, and Saturday afternoon, actually just got back from Vermont. Took a ride up to Vermont early this morning and picked myself up a Beverly Shear. So I just got back from Vermont. I went up this morning and picked up this Beverly Shear from a gentleman who used to be in the automotive trade back when he was a young buck like me. And he's now in his late 70s and he's getting out of the scene. So he put this up on Facebook Marketplace, and I messaged him the other day and told him I'd be up on Saturday morning to get it. I've been looking for one of these Beverly Shears for a few years, and I know they do come up, but they're always so expensive. And I got this Beverly Shear with the handle. It works. And it's got a stand for a sixth of what they typically cost. Just the shear alone, let alone the stand. So I made a 7-hour round trip this morning. I left at 5 o'clock and I got home at lunchtime. And I brought it home. I oiled it up real quick and it works perfectly. So pretty excited to have something else in the shop that I can cut sheet metal or aluminum or whatever it is. With the option of no dust, and that's kind of a big thing. Allie always gets real nervous with me in the garage. Cut off wheels, sanding discs, and everything else, and this is just one more piece of the puzzle. So I have a little bit more tack welding to do, so I'm going to finish tack welding the bottom side of the frame rails. I got the driver's side done. I'm working on the passenger side now. And again, I'm only going to do just tacks every 6 inches or so, and then what I'll do is I'll flip the frame back over once it cools off. Start this video off with a little bit of music. I got a little bit of the front frame horn boxing plate to go from the front of the boxing plate where it ended to the front cross member. I got the door open, so it might throw the light off. You can see in here you got these spaces here on both sides of the frame. I need to do some welding on the driver's side front cross member, but this side's ready to cut in and weld in. So that's these boxing plates here. Now I told you on one of the last videos that I was able to creep this front cross member forwards. That's the amount of frame horn that was left once I measured everything out and moved it forwards. So what I need to do is finish welding inside here, cut some of this metal off, radius this, cut this off, and fold these pieces of metal over just like I did on this side. So I'll end up, I would like to be able to use the boxing plate with the hole. So what I think I'll do is I'll probably weld that in, but I'm going to measure it up first and drill a hole here. Throw this on my drill press and drill out a hole with a hole saw. So I'm going to try to get these two little filler pieces in with the holes drilled, get this welded up, put the frame over later on like I said, and start laying it out on the table where it's going to be at ride height. I'll explain everything as I'm going. So kind of just spent some time with my friend Joe going over everything and the reasons why you do certain things, especially when you're building a rail dragster like this, and the thought process behind the engineering and the degrees of certain things, you know, not worrying about rubber rake and all that other stuff. And if I'm off on a few things, if anybody has some knowledge, please reach out to me. Reach out to me through the comment section or shoot me an email, thisoldhotrod@gmail.com. There is not a lot of information online when it comes to building these types of drag cars. I don't think there were a ton of write-ups in a lot of the magazines. I know there is some, but there's not a lot of literature online, even on the ham, because there were just so many ways to do it, and everybody had their own materials that they used. They had access to certain tools that some guys didn't, and everyone just kind of built things the way they built things. Everybody put their own flair on things, or again had access to different things that not everybody did. So therefore their builds were different. So when you go to research early 50s or 60s rail dragster chassis specs or chassis details, chassis engineering, there's not a lot. I've just been asking a lot of questions to my buddy Joe because he has built one of these in the past. Similar. I just got the top portion of the frame, or the underside of the rail, shortened I got the outside edge radiused around the front edge of the tube, the crossmember. I'm going to get inside of that welded in place right now. I'm going to put a few tacks, and I'm going to fold the top of it down, get that welded, and once that's welded I can bring the bottom edge up and then cut it off, bang it in, and get this all welded together, get that side all welded. So then the front cross member will be welded. I'll obviously have to clean the paint off of it, but it'll be ready for me to at least flip the frame back over. So I want to get this done first. So now again what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these two boxing plate filler pieces cut down and fit to the back edge of the front crossmember. Before I install them, I'm going to get some measurements on the spaces for each hole on the boxing plate, and I'm going to space out the one hole that I'm going to put in that little section that I'm going to add to the front of the frame, just to make sure everything looks even front to back as far as the holes go. And I'm hoping I can maybe add one more on the back of the frame. I do have some other stock. I actually think I have some leftover boxing plates from my 29 sedan that I built years ago. I still got some leftover plate from that. So let's get to work on those, and then once that's done, like I said, I'll be able to undo the frame and then flip the frame over. And then we'll start working towards the next step. Did a real quick template, show you guys how I did it without going into tons of detail. So what I did is grab some cardboard and a marker and a pair of scissors. So instead of making the template to the frame, I just took the boxing plate, traced it out real quick, then transferred the cardboard to the frame rail. And then I took a leftover, got my length that I needed, cut it down to length, took a piece of the leftover of the front cross member, used that as my radius once I had my length marked out. I trimmed that out. So I wanted to just make sure that the template fit both sides of the frame rail, which it does. So now, all right, so that's it. I'm gonna get these cut down real quick, get them thrown on the drill press, get some holes drilled out, figure out exactly where they need to be, and then get these two pieces tacked in place. So I want to make sure I have equal distance from this hole here to this hole here, and then the edge from this hole to the hole on this plate here. So there's just going to be one more hole. The last bit will need to be is on the rear of the frame, but I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with the rear of the frame yet because I don't know where things are going to land. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that cross member in place for now, and I'm not going to add any boxing plate to it quite yet. But that could be something that happens after the rear axle and the drive line's installed, or at least mocked up, and once I get some brackets made, because everything on the frame is going to need to be finish welded after the fact. So I at least know everything's where it needs to be right now and tacked in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab what hole saw I think is the same diameter, which that's it right there. Set this aside, get this drill bit set up, get this set in my drill press. So I figured what makes the most sense, instead of trying to cut this radius with some type of a cutoff wheel, I might as well just use my hole saw. But unfortunately, the drill bit falls in the middle of this hole. So what I'm going to have to do is put another piece of steel underneath this, clamp this down on another piece of steel, and let my pilot drill through the other piece of steel before the hole saw starts cutting into this piece of boxing plate material, just to make sure that the bit stays centered. Otherwise, it'll wander and it'll wallow the hole out, and it won't cut it right. All right, so I just grabbed a piece of sheet metal. I'm gonna get this set down where it needs to be. Grab some clamps, which are here. So today's video posted up the first episode of the Dragster, and I know you guys, it's gonna be like a week from the time you saw that till this time you're seeing this. Sorry about the redundancy on the first couple of videos. I was kind of all over the place, not really like sure exactly where to begin. Whether I should like get stuff on the frame on the table or have it off the table. I ended up, obviously you see where I'm at now. I ended up obviously sandblasting. I pulled everything apart, but I finally feel like things are progressing and going in the right direction. So I know I probably don't need to apologize, but I feel as though I need to say sorry for the redundancy on a couple of the previous videos, because I feel like I kind of repeated myself a few times. All right. That's my driver's side plate, and like I said, I need to still get a hole drilled. While I have this particular size hole saw in the chuck already, I'm gonna get the other boxing plate cut. It ended up cutting through the edges of the plate itself, so it worked out perfect. So I do things how my brain tells me to do things, just like you guys. I'm no different than anybody else in their backyard working on their car. I've said it multiple times. I'm just stupid enough to document it and put myself out there so I can be ridiculed or complimented. Equally both as hard. So I just threw these on the disc sander real quick. Made sure that they fit in the frame nice, exactly how they should. They do. Now what I need to do is figure out exactly where the lightning hole is gonna go. Looks like they get, the smaller the hole, the closer they get. So I'm gonna focus on these front 3 holes and see what the distance is between these 2 front ones, and then figure out what size hole saw that is. It should be one of these. I think I'll go this smaller one. I just think it'll look a little better. So 1.25 inches. That's just a basic idea of where that hole will be. I think I'm okay with that. I mean, I could try to center it, but I don't think it would look right because I'd rather have the distance the same. Actually, let's see what the distance is from the front edge of this to the cross member. It's 1.25 inches. So it actually works out perfectly. This is the same distance between the front edge of this to the edge of the hole, then the edge of the hole to the back edge of the front cross member. So that's perfect. So as long as I get my measurement top to bottom centered, I'm going to grab a punch, and I'm probably going to do these at the exact same time. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this in my drill press and get this first one cut out, and then transfer everything over onto this one. All just real basic stuff, you know. Nothing I do is all that difficult, or I try to make it so it's not difficult. Definitely save this along with the other one now, and I'll make sure I have these for the future. So what I did before I was completely all the way through the first one, I removed the plate, I put the second one underneath it, and then centered through the hole, went down through the top one that I was already almost halfway or 3/4 of the way through, and essentially just used it as a guide. And then I drilled them both. In theory, they should match one another. After my day with my mom, oh, hold on. A big old fat ant crawling in the shop. Once I get these things tacked in place, I'm going to call it a day. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon, so I'm going to take the dogs out for a walk and just kind of hang out, maybe have a couple of beers. And then I'll be able to remove this frame from the table and get everything where it needs to be, and I'll explain that in the next episode of this old hot rod, my vintage drag car. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, take care, bye-bye.